Morning, everyone. Today we are going to look at some of this planning principles established in late 18th century and early 19th century, which are known as beautiful city movement, civic virtues, and harmonious social order. Now, there are few planners who began to raise some fundamental questions related to the way in which cities have been planned, organized. They began to see some of the Gothic cities, some of the Byzantine cities, some of these Renaissance cities, and try to put those ideas into a kind of a theoretical model on which a city could be planned. And these are the very important phase of modern city planning, because these are the few planners who raise some fundamental issues, how city could be planned. So a beautiful city movement was one of the ideas, looking at certain aspects of city. Civic architecture, where planners began to ask questions on validity of architecture and its role as a civic artifact. And some planners also looked at this idea of how do we create a harmonious social order. How do we establish, what are the fundamentals of looking at those social orders. So one of the pioneer of this artistic movement was Camillo Sitte. Camillo Sitte was a Viennese architect and planner. He had that European, city understanding, and he began to formulate some of these fundamental principles which are based on art. It means we are looking at certain compositional qualities which are very essential in city planning. The whole idea of city plan is not to just the grid iron pattern and then start arranging blocks. It's much more than that. So Camillo first time began to document this theoretical understanding based on Gothic cities, Byzantine cities, and Renaissance cities, and converted them into certain principles, set of principles. And these principles are looking at the aesthetics of the city. I always look at the idea of aesthetics is so important in architecture and city. Aesthetics means a sense of delight, and the sense of delight directly, indirectly relates to the quality of life. And Camillo looked at this idea of aesthetic composition of the city. There are methods through which you can establish certain compositional qualities which gives a character to the city. So he wrote two books. One of the book which was foundational book, which was Art of Building Cities, and of course not questioning many other scientific understanding of cities, but principally the art and composition becomes a most important part of the way in which you imagine city. So Camillo Sitte began to think about this idea of artistic compositional quality of cities through three different positions. One of the position was that the grid iron pattern cities are not doing much. We can't have cities designed only for mobility. Cities are much beyond this mobility structure. So that's the first criticism. The second criticism was that we do not have civic architecture in the city. There is absence of civic architecture. There is absence of important landmarks. And if you look at Gothic or Byzantine cities, they had very important religious buildings as a landmark, while Renaissance began to design cities with important public functions. And third criticism was the depleting quality of urban space. We do not have urban space. There is absence of large public realm, which early classical cities would offer. And through aesthetic or artistic considerations, city important function could be composed. It's the whole idea of composition of cities is same way in which you compose architecture. So he began to look at some of these earlier cities, medieval cities, especially Rome. And what you see on the left hand side is the systematic analysis of the plaza around Pantheon. You can see that building, you can see the fabric, and he began to draw them out. There are very important urban fabric around a large punctuation, that is a Pantheon. If you remember Nolliers' plan, he talked about the idea of built and unbuilt, what is public and what is private. And Pantheon is almost a public building. It means you can access the building and you can come out. So it's a part of the public plaza. But Camillo began to look at beyond that Nolliers' plan, and he started to draw important aspects of the city in terms of the way it has been, the composition has been carried out. So if you see the diagram, the irregular street forms, the formation of plaza, the situation of Pantheon, it gives a sense of presence, sense of place, because there is a large punctuation in the plaza. But also you access the building from various network, and building tend to release itself. The large public building release itself. You get a particular view of the building. These axes are very important. So plaza has certain sense of scale in order to have a building, view released in a particular position, and you could view Pantheon from various situation, and from that situation you could have an access to various other small plazas or piazzas. So these are the important dimension of first compositional qualities. What you see, a center diagram, is a formation of such various piazzas and its relationship with the fabric. So there is a irregularity, but within this irregularity there is a composition. And on the right hand side, what you see is a series of drawings. One is the fabric, which has a Pantheon, and then second drawing, what you see is it has a series of intensified, energized nodes in the fabric. And these are the large pause points with some directional quality. It means moment you arrive at the node, you tend to move in a particular direction. Now he began to draw them out, and he began to give them value. The larger circle means more intense, smaller circle will be less intense. And you tend to release certain network system within the city, which will allow you to understand why certain place, certain node, certain plaza are more important, more interesting, more energized than the other. And this is the way through which you could start looking at the composition of your city structure. So within that same third diagram, you could look at small network, medium network, and large network, and start detailing it out to understand certain compositional quality in each case. And you also see a section of street, variety of street sections, the relationship of building to street or a building to building. I mean, this also becomes a very important part of aesthetic composition, because these all have to address what we call it a human scale. And through earlier understanding of art of city building exercise, he started looking at modern city planning principles based on the classical ideas. So what you see on the left hand side is series of piazzas, definitely from early Gothic architecture, Gothic cities, where You see the important relationship of buildings, punctuation mark, and open space, and the sense of irregularity, sense of unpredictableness of this piazza adds that kind of a quality to the life. So he started drawing them and detailing them out and making the similar drawing that we see in Pantheon, where certain aesthetic compositional quality each piazzas would have, and that would allow you to arrive at certain types of building typologies. So there are a variety of building typologies that emerge from this understanding. These typologies are various kinds of one which is a generic typologies which formulates a public or urban fabric, and there are specific typologies which creates a large punctuation mark. So Cité talked about various typologies that emerge from this understanding, and these typologies have a situation through which building would respond to its own function, at the same time its function as urban artifacts. So architecture in this process slowly, moving away from its sphere, which is a self-absorbed, quality, to object or a subject for a city at large, and that's how architecture begins to define what we call it urbanity. So this is what we call it atlas of typologies, where you begin to draw various building types and their situation and what each building would do, what kind of public function or a private function it would accommodate. In a similar time frame, we have another planner, Daniel Burnham. I mean, he was one of the prominent figure who talked about City Beautiful movement. City Beautiful movements are very similar to the art of making cities, building cities by Camillo Sitte. It's in the same time frame, but in a different context. He planned and designed Chicago, which is on a lake edge, and you can see some of these typologically classifiable buildings, building with the void. They are systematically organized on a gridiron pattern, and then there are some diagonal street. They emerge out of fabric and they meet into large public plaza with very interesting civic architecture. It means the city has an important civic function, which is facing the lake, and that makes city with certain character. So if you look at the large plan of the Chicago city and its relationship with the larger geography, you can see the green patches. They are almost penetrating into the urban fabric, and this thin green patches slowly becomes a large or medium size public spaces, and then slowly they become very large urban reserves, or forest reserves on the wilderness or fringes. Now he began to see this as an important part of City Beautiful movement, where allow the greens to enter the fabric. And perhaps this is the first time you begin to see a city structure not through fabric, but city structure through green spaces. So there are this diagonal thing emanating out of the central space, and then you have a horizontal connectivity, and how these greens are connected. So a lot of these ideas of making city structure through green spaces are evident in many modern cities, especially Chandigarh. You will see green spaces are becoming very prominent in understanding of the city structure. So every city has a structure, and it is necessary to understand city through this kind of structure. Another important planner, French planner, L'Enfant, who was asked to plan Washington DC. Now, Washington DC plan was a very important marker in history of planning, because here the L'Enfant began to challenge this grid through a very interesting way of overlaying diagonal grid on that. So, moment you lay diagonal grid on a linear grids or gridiron pattern, you tend to rip open the fabric in a very unusual way. And in that process, you begin to also develop a very interesting typologies of buildings when the diagonal cuts are straight. And this allows a city to emerge with a very, very different kind of fabric, different kind of, experience. As you move around, suddenly you come across a junction which has got a street which are all diagonally, cutting through the fabric. So there is a sense of disorientation at some point, but there is a sense of surprise also, and it breaks the monotony of the gridiron pattern. Now, he also began to draw the important part of the city function, which is a capital complex, which is almost a geographical center, and through which the grids and diagonal grids kind of emerge. And there is a large sense of public gathering place, which happens right in the center in that sense. So this is the first exercise where someone began to draw beyond this gridiron pattern and look at some experiential quality in understanding, experiencing cities. You will find a lot of striking resemblance between Washington DC and Delhi, planned by Lutyens Delhi. How these diagonals they really sit on some of this gridiron pattern. So this was a very important exercise in talking about the composition of cities and move away from a rigid structure of a gridiron pattern. And then, of course, in 1900, they seriously begin to plan the Capitol buildings. What we are going through a Central Vista project. I mean, you can find striking resemblance, how axis is drawn and how axis is reinforced through a series of buildings which are sit along the edge like a soldiers, and the central axis, the Central Vista remains a very prominent part of this composition. One side you see one tall pencil-like monument, other side you see a White House, and there is almost like a Rajpath and Janpath kind of a compositional quality. And building types are also kind of a very regulated, so that it kind of reinforces this centrality to the mall road, they call it. Now, this is a very important exercise, which is a recent one, maybe 1990 or maybe this time when I was doing my master's. This is the time frame when Venturi was asked to intervene and create a plaza, what they call it, Pennsylvania Avenue, which is a large street that you see, and plaza basically gathering place. And Venturi is always looking at some complex method to have intervention and throw a challenge on people. So he drew the Washington DC plan on the plaza, and you can see the Mall Road, which is a large open space. You can see the diagonal grid, which is emerging from central space, and it is almost suggesting that you can see the pencil monument in the background. It's almost suggesting that the democracy is not just about dictating. Democracy is about also dominating. Democracy is about people dominating cities. City need not dominate. I think that function is very important. It means that the city has to be far more domesticated in nature, far more scaled down in nature. And Venturi's idea of the explicit message, which he is known for, that you can dominate city, and what is the best way to dominate is to have the map drawn on the floor and people just use that plaza. Although success of this plaza is a questionable, because when plaza of this kind, touches the major road network, the accessibility becomes a big question. But anyway, that's a separate discussion. But this is how people, kind of various architects, planners respond to cities at various time frame. Frederick Law Olmsted was another important planner in America. He was pioneer basically in promoting this idea of garden city. You must have heard of this idea of garden city. Of course, he was not directly promoting garden city, but he was making a certain kind of political statement when he was looking at planning of cities, that cities need not be kind of dominated by those gridiron structure. The cities need not be dominated by the capitalistic structure. It need not be dominated by consumerism pattern. And city needs to get subdued down such thought. And one of the important intervention of Central Park, which is the largest urban park within the city, and you can see the gridiron pattern all around. You can see various kind of buildings, lot sizes, and you have a Central Park which is sitting right in the center. It means he is attempting to soften down that rigid structure, rigid capitalistic structure, rigid consumeristic pattern that you see in urban fabric. And perhaps this kind of spaces would allow the egalitarian nature of the urban architecture. And this is how the Central Park looks like. It's the most thriving Central Park that you can see perhaps anywhere in the city. Perhaps no city has able to emulate this exercise, and you can see the edge where buildings are given certain incentive FSIs, and they kind of a dot of the skyline. So one of the important aspects in similar time frame was a garden city concept. Garden city concept was pioneered by Ebenezer Howard. He looked at this idea of the medieval cities, which are cities for commercial activities, and then you have satellite cities which are like a garden city concept, where they are connected through central city, but you have a distinct kind of a detachment. I mean, look at Mumbai and Navi Mumbai, which is a similar in nature. You have connectivity, but Navi Mumbai has a very distinct open space character, which perhaps the Mumbai lacks. And Howard began to set certain principles looking at garden cities. There are many examples of garden cities in America and some part of Europe, where the whole city structure starts with the way you imagine the green spaces, and then look at how do you build city, where do you build city. So one of the disciple of Howard was Louis Mumford. He wrote an interesting book on cities and laid the foundation of some of these fundamentals of modern day living, without compromising on any of this new network mobility structure, but still it could be easily integrated with the quality of life in terms of open spaces, green spaces, accessibilities. So these are all physical planners that we discussed earlier, who talked about the intervention and looking at principles which are physical in nature. For example, composition, aesthetics, you draw them out, you compose them. But there are other urbanist researcher who looked at idea of perceptual cities. It means they look at historical structure through the perceptual understanding. It means how people really perceive cities. So one of the very important basic fundamental book is Townscape by Gordon Cullen. He began to draw various city fabric, through a different method. He would sketch them the way you see. It means you are walking down the city, city releases itself. So city has certain characteristics. It releases itself during various time of the day, various types of activities, various types of lights and shadows, and he would draw them out. And he argued that these are the important ingredients of city structure. How do you see, city in reality? So he would call them jerks and revelation. Jerks are the one, where it gives you a little shock as you move around, either through a dense activity or intense light and shadow or various other components. And revelation is something where you see a very important punctuation marks and how it gets revealed, as you move around. We discussed Pantheon, where Pantheon could be seen from various points. It releases itself. So he called it revelation. And as any buildings acquire many revelation point, the more popular that place becomes. So there are two important books that emerged from perceptual understanding and physical planning perspective. The one is The Image of the City, which Ankush has already given it to you, by Kevin Lynch. The other book on cities, Design of Cities by Edmund Bacon, which is a very physical understanding of cities, very important understanding the way city could be drawn. So I hope that you must have at least gone through some part of Kevin Lynch. We'll discuss this in next lecture. But Design of Cities, again, it's a physical understanding of cities. He began to draw some of these historical cities through a very simple geometric lines. So yellow line, or yellow color that you see, is an important public domain, public realm, and how this small public realm, they come from various parts of the city and merge into a large public realm. Very strategic location, facing the water edge, with large footprints and large public buildings. So city often constitute this idea of what we call it fine grain and coarse grain. Again, we'll discuss next time. Large footprints and small footprints. Large footprints are obviously the public buildings, and public domain is defined through this large footprints, the nature of footprints that the city would have. So he began to draw different kinds of cities through this idea of public domains. Similarly, St. Peter Square, how various yellow lines, yellow public domains, they are forced into one large public plaza, and that has a certain axial relationship with the other buildings around. So there is a sense of containment, there is a sense of strong enclosure. He also began to draw a very important way of making drawings of city structure. This is in Siena. He began to draw what the Renaissance started one-point perspective sometime, and he began to draw one-point perspective from the sky and how a city fabric would be seen. And one could see very clearly there are distinct punctuation mark on vertical axis, and then there is a large void with a very dense fabric. So there is a generic fabric, generic typologies, and there are specific typologies. And how do you compose them? How do you put them together? And Edmund Bacon kind of demonstrated that it's about the way you make drawings of cities. So making and representing cities are very important function in understanding and designing cities. Another important book by Kevin Lynch, which is A Good City Form, which is little complex in understanding, but he is talking about city form, what we call it urban form. Like architectural form, we talk about urban form. The urban form has a various ingredients, various components, and what we discussed today, what are we discussing today are some of these basic fundamental components which makes urban form. So for some planner, idea of urban form is how buildings are related to green spaces. For some urban planners, the good urban form is how they are actually connected to other spaces. So likewise, every planners, designers, urbanists would look at cities from their perspective, and they would begin to understand cities through their perspective. So this idea of learning and learning to draw city, represent cities, to look at various metaphoric construct, theoretical construct, and you will find very interesting ways. Moment you make drawings of particular kind, it reveals its character, it reveals its true nature, in its fabric. And this is very important part of way you start making drawings. So this is the last slide. This talks about some important part of this urbanscape theory. There are 6 authors. Of course, they are quite spaced out in timeline. Aristotle talked about aestheticism long back, and he was proponent of irregular form. The city should be irregular; it need not be regular. And Vitruvius, talked about some of this idea of order and control, that you need to have a very structured order in the city, and he talked about street to be laid out, in a particular way, with the wind direction in mind. Frederick Law Olmsted talked about idea of accessible landscape. How do we make green spaces, open spaces, large the reserves accessible, and making cities more egalitarian, more democratic. So it's a slightly political realm that comes in, but I think there is a physical intervention to it. Camillo Sitte talked about artistic and aestheticism, artistic composition. So begin to look at city purely from a composition point of view. Various compositional ways through which you could create interesting public places. Daniel Burnham, City Beautiful movement, and he began to look at idea of access and civic order. I think Delhi is a brilliant example of this, how access really enforce certain civic order. And Ebenezer Howard looked at idea of reform with nature. It means how nature is integrated with city fabric, and the formulation of the principles of garden cities. Many cities are designed based on garden cities, and begin to look at the green as an integrated part of everyday life. And these are the way through which cities in earlier 1900 were understood, and and most of the planners thought perhaps this is the way you could move towards better quality of life, move towards more democratic understanding of our existence in the city. Thank you.